Hello and welcome to the art of being a gracious diva. This is day one of our Gracious Diva event that's live. It is public. It is out in the world. The first 3 days are public for everybody to see, and the final 3 days, so there's a total of 6 days, is in our little portal. So you would have to actually join the event to be able to access them. It is a free event, but it'll be for those who are like ready to go through the process. Because when we move on to the 4, 5, and 6 days, that'll be what we'll be using for our portal. So it's essentially where we're going to be learning our leadership skills as gracious divas, choosing our realms of divaship, and really tapping into our divinity of what we want to show up with in the world. So we have a big day ready for you. And sorry for the weird screen. It's like the sun is changing as we speak. So it keeps changing. But here we go. Welcome, welcome. If you haven't been to a Gracious Diva event before, this is our fifth year running. Sometimes I invite people to hang out with us and to talk about what it takes to really step into leadership. But this time I've really prepared a pretty in-depth series here that really I wanted to invite people into my work and my experience without having to really have, invest fully upfront. And so this is really built the way I would build out a course. And we are putting the pieces in place as we go. For those who do not know, which is probably most of you, I am moving the whole of the house. So our membership, I'm also working on a study for the Oman's local residence method. The people that are working with me and getting their data in for the study, which I'm calling flow frequency. I think I love the name. Flow frequency is how we go about doing the practice and seeing what the numbers are on how they are affecting us and how they improve our ability to be confident and to show up. So that's what's fun about that. And all of that is moving into this other space. During this time, I do not have an admin. I'm doing it all myself. So if you see any glitches or if you're like, what is going on? I thought this was happening and I haven't seen anything yet. Please do not hesitate to send me a quick email and let me know if there are any glitches, because as I kind of take down pages and move them over, if I miss a link, if I miss something, then it won't quite work, right? So any help you want to give me on when I'm moving things over to the new space, please, please, please feel free to chime in on what's going on over there on your side of the fence. I want to make it the best possible experience for you. So really, this is about the art of gracious diva is really about being able to build the confidence to build the legacy that you deserve. Whatever you're desiring, whatever you have in your mind and your vision to work in the world so that you can contribute, but also be recognized for the value that you hold and the wisdom that you share. And, I think the thing that I most don't want for my clients is to not go through the rest of their life and not have that experience. It took a lot of courage, took a lot of energy during some of the hardest parts of my life to develop my current business, and the way it's and how it's grown has been amazing. But even in the beginning, it was just doing the small bits here and there of showing up the way I knew how before I had any training or anything like that. And then as wonderful teachers have poured into me through courses that I've taken over the years, it's grown and it's evolving and it continues to evolve. And the challenge there is that I am a creative, I am an artist, right? And so I have all these amazing ideas and bringing them all into fruition. Sometimes the getting it done overlap doesn't look as beautiful and pristine as I would like. but it's the best thing that I've ever done, right? If I didn't know I could be myself and serve people at the highest level, if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't know that. And if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't have met the amazing people I've met through my business and my clients that I currently have now. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have known how valuable other people find the work that I do, right? So it starts by showing up for your work. And that's why we're using the Gracious Diva archetype to really understand how we can step into this in a gracious and divine way. Um, so I'm out here like working with wonderful visionaries, leadership, um, trainers, coaches, and people who are looking to be of service in the world for people that maybe have a hard time and are looking to have a better time in their life and be there for themselves. So a lot of the people that I work with are actually helping people to be caretakers of who they are and what they're holding and the visions they're holding for themselves as well. And it's kind of this kind of trickle down thing that happens when we are able to build up what we are truly standing on, the pillars we're truly standing on, and then how we're able to share that information in a way that we know that has worked previously. So the first step is really to get started, to get some feedback on how it works for people. And then the second step is to start telling people like what's worked for other people and what's worked for you. And then it's about kind of honing it into something that people can find cohesive and can come back to, right? So, here on this first day, we're really focusing on what it means to create your business, a vision, your life, to be a visionary entrepreneur and an amazing speaker. Um, it takes a real ownership of the message that we hold and the vision that we have. And so we're using this diva word because I know it's triggering for some people and it's gotten better over the years. But the first time I mentioned that my how do you define the word diva post, I had these responses that were like, oh, stuck up and like, I don't know why you'd want to be a diva and all of this kind of thing. Because what's been assigned is that somebody that's a diva is actually being too good for other people. It's kind of the first thing that comes up. They're somehow acting out, right? They're usually kind of being too bossy, too bold, this too much idea. But how I see that is that originally diva was about actually being a ballerina. So it wasn't really about because I feel like a lot of the diva, what people use it as a bad word, they're talking about being too loud, too much, right? And I'm like, first of all, that's not really a bad thing. Sometimes you got to get loud if you want people to pay attention, right? Or if you want to make sure that something happens in a matter of urgency. And so there's times to be loud. And opera is one of those times. So if you haven't caught me, as an opera singer, I did that for years in North Carolina and on the East Coast, DC, a little bit in New York, and even around the world. I went to Greece and Bulgaria. I sang in both places. And so I had this experience of being the loudest voice in the room being a good thing, right? Like it's something that I worked very hard to be able to become the one and the voice that was the only voice being heard at a time, right? And it's because, and so in that way, I think of the first ballerinas that worked so hard with a lot of very hard working people and women, right? The prima donna, it was the person that won the role, that deserved it because of the work they put in and the dedication they had and the vision they held for the character. And it became something that was adopted by opera. And and then again, when we're talking about true divas, when we're talking about people that have been around for decades, if and have or remembered, a century later, I think that's an operatic diva, right? So are not quite at a century, but people like Maria Callas, Aretha Franklin is one that comes immediately to mind, but there are so many, and we're going to talk about each of them as we go through this day. So the first thing I want to do, if you see the post, you probably don't see it yet, but when you see the post, I want you to put up how you define a diva. That's the first post. So actually, that one is already up. Okay. But I want you to think of, I also like kind of, what you're thinking about what it takes to be a true diva, not just something that, somebody who just yells and begs for, or not even begs, they don't beg, right? But they yell and they throw a fit until they get what they want. Is kind of the interpretation I think that a lot of people hold of diva in these days. All right. So let me know what that is. So during this event, we're talking about building a legacy of service and excellence. We're talking about ways to amplify the beauty of your unique genius, how to start showing up in your business and vision, and how you can maximize your strengths and use them for your advantage. How to take your leadership voice to the next level for the greatest impact and visibility. And when a lot of the people that I work with are looking to do this, it's not necessarily because they're trying to get a ton of attention personally, but it's because they're holding a vision that deserves that attention. And so they have to become the voice or the leader of that vision. And that's a little bit differently motivated. Can you feel that? That if it's just about like, I want to be recognized for myself because I deserve it and I don't really have any other reason, right? There's a difference between that and no, I've put work into this. I believe that there's true beauty, true value to be observed and held in this that I have built for you. And in service, I would love for you to receive it, right? That's a different feeling. And a lot of the people that I work with, they just never worked on the part of them that shows up to be seen, right? They just kind of, a lot of us have put our head down, done the work. We've built other people's visions, but haven't necessarily tapped into the true creativity and passion that houses the vision that we hold that's unique to us. And when it's unique, it's memorable. We'll talk more about that as we go. So yeah, so there's a lot that we're going to be talking about today. And so I just want to thank you for being here. I want you to know that you're free to go ahead and schedule a session with me in the link that you sign up with. You can go ahead and do that there. And if you decide to comment when I post the videos to the public, if you're not in the live group, the Zoom room, right? If you're not in the Zoom room and I post it to Facebook or YouTube and you see it and you comment on it, then you will automatically be entered. Well, you'll be automatically entered if you're part of the event. So you would have to be a part, register for the event with your email address so that I would be able to find you and tell you that you've won. But the winning gift to this series is your voice activation for pricing confidence. So if you're not quite at pricing stage yet, this might be your voice activation to show up on YouTube, or your voice activation to give your first speech, right? Or your first event even. So it's really about honing into how you're showing up in your voice, getting your body aligned and on board so that it feels good and you feel strong about showing up for what's next. That's what I like to call it. But it can look like pricing, it can look like an actual speech, it can look like a concert, right? So all of those are up for grabs. And we're going to be talking about so many potent morsels today. So I think the first most important thing we have to tap into is this changing landscape right now of what life is looking like, what it will look like. And I think one of the things we want to remember is that we always want to kind of tap back into right now. We don't always know what tomorrow holds. That's why I think it's very important to share your vision with the world, because we don't know if we'll have another chance to do it. And maybe that, if we have a clear understanding, if we are starting to sense how important it is that we share a vision with the world, then it's a now thing. The more that we are showing up, the more imbalanced the world is. And when I say we, I'm talking about us that are sometimes adopted, like we adopted to the vision. In other words, we might not think of ourselves automatically as leaders, but because we are the ones with the vision that see how it can move us forward, um, through other people, empowering others, or the empowering our units of family, our chosen family, or empowering our communities and greater service and systems, how we can build things in a way that will be interconnected and truly self-support, like self-supporting. And I don't mean self-supporting in like it's the solitary person is doing all the work. I mean self-supporting in that the connections are strong, like a web they will hold because they cross in many different intersections and are can take a hit and still be able to reach where it needs to go. Like kind of amazing networking that spiders do with their webs, right? And that's really what we want to. We want to build a resilient, whatever we build, we want it to be resilient, and we want it to grow on itself. If you're going to build a legacy, that's part of what we talk about here at Gracious Diva, then it has to be something that will continue to build, right? So we're going to talk about some components of what it looks like to be a leader, a Gracious Diva leader, and we're going to talk about what it looks like to be one, what how our minds work. We're going to talk about how we go about doing things over here in Gracious Diva Leadership Land. And then we're going to talk about actual hard task steps. And I don't like to, I said hard, but this is the thing that we choose the thing that we want to work on. And we can either be working to build somebody else's legacy, or we can be working on our own. And it doesn't mean an either or situation either. So I think especially during this time, kind of the old way of talking about things is that, oh, quit your job and do this, right? And I don't think anybody's saying that nowadays. They could probably get sued at this point because you can't promise anything. We don't know how long it takes for you to get your business off the ground, or for you to start receiving what is truly the value that you offer, right? It might take some time because it takes some time to hone these things and to understand ourselves and understand how we're connecting in a way that creates the result that we get to work together and go down the road together, right? We're also going to talk about kind of the ultimate truth of Gracious Diva leadership, of sharing our beauty with the world. Okay. So one of the things that I learned in my pursuit to be an opera singer. So when I started at first, it was just about teaching. I wanted to teach music, and I wanted to pick an instrument that I would really enjoy learning in depth and mastering. And I already learned several instruments. I learned clarinet was my most proficient instrument, but I learned flute and saxophone and trumpet and several other instruments just as a way of getting my degrees, especially my undergraduate degree. And so when I picked a voice the first time, it was actually to avoid the technical work that I'd have to do on a physical instrument, or the external instrument, I should say. And and whoa, was I surprised that I picked something extremely challenging. But I knew because I loved it so much that I would do the work, right? So even when I realized, oh, this isn't going to be as easy as I thought, I think I'm going to go ahead and do the work. So part of the Gracious Diva is not necessarily to work so hard that you burn out, but it is to do work that's inspiring so it gives you energy. And there's a difference there, right? And so that's the main job of choosing the work we're here to do in the world, and being clear about it, being clear on what that work is and how we want to share that with others, right? So the difference here is that you when you're picking the work that you want to do, is something that you really want. And I feel like a lot of us have lost our understanding of what we want because we've been raised to probably think of others first, to think about how others feel about what you're doing. We've been taught to be good students, to listen more than we speak. All of these things have been taught either in the home or in the culture. And I think it's more prone to people that have female characteristics or have been thought as female as when they were growing up. And it can be really intense if you have that as an identity as well, even if you're not, if you know weren't treated as female growing up, right? So a lot of our identity comes from how people reflect to us. So how do we reinstate who we really are? Through entraining our bodies and our bodies to understand what's what's truth for us. And what is so interesting about this, I'm going to share a beautiful video. I'm going to share a beautiful video just after this in the social channels, so Facebook, YouTube. I'll post it on both. And it's this video that I saw that was about how they did a study and they had people in a Faraday cage so they could see the energy they were producing within themselves, because we've learned that we hold a lot of energy in our bodies and we can increase it, we can align it, we can adjust it. A lot of us have come across the work that allows us to have more of an impact in that way. And that's so much of what we get to do in Vocal Alchemy here in the Impact Voice Studio. And so, yes, and what's amazing about that is that they did joy and they did happiness. And they, essentially, emotions are how we sense or can even remember, or what I call recall as a feelingness in the body. So we're remembering by bringing it back to our understanding and our experience, right? And so, and when I think of remembering, I'm talking about somatics, I'm talking about embodiment, right? So they would remember something that makes them happy, or think about something that makes them happy, something that makes them joyful, something that makes them sad, something that makes them depressed, all of those things. And they did a range of emotions. Guess which emotion won as far as that most energy created? And it was actually had point had revealed itself because it was sending off these surges. Like the people that were experiencing this emotion before they decided to include it as part of the study were sending off these extreme emotions. Like who are the people that are having these spikes? How are they having these spikes? What is making them surge in that energy so strongly? And what was it? Authenticity. It was the feeling of authenticity, of being the truth of who you are. And nobody can teach you that. No external source can teach you that. They can confuse that, right? But it's really up to us to identify, yes, that's me. No, that's not me, right? And so this is really the potency of doing true purpose work, true identity work, spending some real time on getting to know yourself, know thyself. This is something that the wisdom teachers have been telling us for a while, right? And so that's a major aspect of what we have here. What I notice about people who aren't getting what they want are is that they really don't know. People don't know what they want because they've been told what they want. Of course, you want to do well in school so you can get good grades, so you can go to college because you want to go to college, so you can get a good job, so you can get good money, so you can raise a family because you want to raise a family. And if you right, like there's all of these ideas that are put into our heads, and we never stop to ask ourselves in our developing years, is that true for me? So what I know about shadow work is that it is ever changing, ever constant, it's constant. Okay. There's never a time you're going to like run out of shadow to work on, right? And so I don't think this is about being perfect or getting rid of all your shadows. It's not really a thing either. But it's about being able to come back and choose your state so that you can do or focus on what you want to do or focus on, right? So a lot of people don't get what they want because they can't focus on what they want. and they haven't found out what they want. Those are kind of the two top problems there. So what people end up doing, and it's a pretty big problem for those who know that, time is not infinite in our physical form, right? We only learn that tomorrow is not promised. And it's that they're just going to leave their greatest desire, their greatest passion, who they really are, up to chance. They're just going to be like, oh, well, there's nothing, I can't think of how to do anything about it right now. I'm just going to let whatever happens happen. And life happens, and the desire is never fulfilled. But the further down you get into your life or your maturity of being here on this earth planet, the more you realize that it doesn't go away, right? That thing that lights you up, what's important to you, what's valuable about being in the world. Like we do a lot of things and we go through a lot of pain being in the world. Why would we choose that as a greater understanding or higher consciousness spirit? Why would God choose it for us if we don't see it that way? Because it's worth it, right? There's something we were here to experience, and we're here for that. Can you imagine going your whole life and just never consciously choosing and interacting and creating what you're here for? I can't, right? That's what made me make my decision, even during a time when it was still very weird and still much felt very taboo based on how I grew up and what my environment was around me in classical music, right? My ideas are different, and they're very different. More people are getting to know them through understandings of quantum science, and so many different components at this point are quantum. But it's still not common knowledge that voice is a part of sound healing. Still not common knowledge. A voice is like a bypass. I don't like the word bypass, but it is the hardwired feature to our bodies. We were born innately with this feature of being able to vibrate our own physical body, right? Every time we speak and every time we sing. And so the studies here on that is like the vagus nerve study. So what happens when we sing? What happens when we like humming, chanting, singing, scientifically researched and proven to tone your vagus nerve, which allows for your body to move into parasympathetic states quickly, easily, and as needed. So restorative mode for healing, digestion, to take you out of fight or flight, trauma, making decisions for you in your mind. So I love it because it's like, that's why I think of it as bypassing, because my brain thinks it's going to figure it out, right? But the goal is for my body to move into what I want without me having to exert willpower, because I only have so much. We all only have so much, right? So that's part of what we do here in the work. So let me tell you a little about what's going to happen. Where we have these 3 days of the art of being gracious diva. Those who decide to keep doing this work with us, we're going to move into our portal and do some of the more maybe a little bit intimate work of spending some time on choosing how we're anchoring in our gracious diva leadership. And so that's what the portal's really for, and so that we can have that inner communication without you having to share everything publicly if you're not into that. And also to find out if this is, again, having a little bit more of experience to see if this is a work you want to delve into more deeply, because this is a practice, my guys. This is a practice. So this is not about kind of learning something and going on and moving on, right? This is something that we build up as a practice so that our bodies are entrained to a way of being confident, of being tuned in to our purpose, of being on track effortlessly, like accomplishing our tasks with the same capability as we did when we were children. When we hit something that was hard when we were children, we were like, oh, I don't know about this. Let me ask, right? I'll ask a parent. I'll look it up in the encyclopedia. There was there's things that we did as children that were automatic. And we get to a point sometimes when we get older, we're like, I know what I'm supposed to know. And we don't like to admit to ourselves that we don't know everything we want to know or need to know. And it becomes this question of like, I don't know how, I don't know how, I don't know how, I don't know how, right? It becomes this chant in our brains instead of, I can find out, I can figure it out, I will, I will get help. Asking for help has gone the way of I don't know what, right? But these are how you build true connections and relationships. And sometimes it takes some work to build a good relationship. So when you're asking for something, it doesn't feel like you're taking without, being a part of a true connection. And so I think that's part of it, that we've kind of had these more alien transactions online and all these kind of things at a distance. And so it feels like sometimes that we're only giving, right? But if we're asking, we can receive. And it's also something that we can entrain. We can entrain receptivity. And so what our voices are really good at is sending the vibration before we understand in the way that we know how. So it tunes us into this receptivity that allows us to receive or come across the things that will make our lives easier, that will teach us how, that will give us the automatic next step without having to even know how, right? All of that is possible if we're aligned, but it does take some practice. It does take some practice. So those who are willing to jump in with me, that is that first step, because that I don't know how is that self-sabotage, a little bit of overprotection of self, and it's really keeping us from voicing and cultivating our voice, right? Voicing our vision and cultivating our voice. I do think, personally, in my opinion, as an artist, as a creative, as a mind that comes up with 1,000 ideas, I do think that we're here to be the full self-expression of our essence and archetypes. I believe that's already in you. I don't think you have to go find out what your purpose is. You are your purpose. Your makeup, who you already are, is why you're here. And we talk about that a lot in Gene Keys. So if you haven't seen Gene Keys transits information on my channel, please do check it out, because it's this way of just looking into and seeing what these archetypes are. Do they feel familiar? Do they not? This is where we start asking the questions of how knowing ourselves fully, because these archetypes have been talked about for thousands of years. Wisdom teachers for thousands of years have been studying astrology and cycles and life on this planet. And they've come up with this amazing set of tools that helps us to sense what we can expect out of creating and building things on the planet. And to not tap into that wisdom, you don't have to necessarily think that it can tell you anything about you, but it can tell you the aspects that can show up for people in general. It can help you understand other people more so that you can connect in a way that people hear you more clearly. And that's what it's done for me. I feel like the work between my own work of Oman's vocal resonance method, which is the vibrational somatic method that we use to entrain our bodies and use that vagus nerve to help us tone us and train us into feelings of safety and being potent in our power and our truth and our impact, right? And this amazing ability to tap into astrology and be able to learn the cycles that every time we move through a creative cycle, the creation cycle for the planet is going from planting the seed to the harvest, right? And the creative cycle for human beings looks very similar in the ways that we are initiating. So that's part of vocal alchemy, is understanding the cycle in a way that you understand how you create. So you're not freaked out when it's time to go rest and you don't know how, right? There's no tools of restoration. At minimum, again, you want to have your own tools. I'm sure you do have your own tools. But if we don't have these things kind of understanding how they show up for us throughout the seasons, that because it changes often, it changes how we respond in our planting season as to how we respond in our harvest or how we respond in winter. And most of us have not been taught to respond in winter, right? We've been taught to kind of just ignore winter, to keep being productive, to keep producing, to keep harvesting. So we just got to remember that there's a natural way that these things build. And when we take the real time to rest and to restore, to make a practice out of that, we are tapping into true power of creation. And when we can value it, we get the most out of it. And until you value it, then it'll always be kind of teaching us on the back end by getting sick or being worn out, that kind of thing. All right. So this is about cultivating that voice and self-expression to see what it's like to be able to actually restore yourself and heal yourself through your physical voice and being able to find the right cycle and speed of creation for you that feels regenerative instead of feeling like you're giving more than you're receiving. And so, yeah, so this is about that. How does it look like for me to be a gracious diva leader? So, in the beginning, when we're younger, and often, again, for those who have been raised as girls, there's this idea that everyone has to fulfill the family need first, right? And I think that's a good thing. I think, supporting the family is good, but first is the problem I have with that statement. Because what we've done is we created a thing where you're going to always should be on for everybody around you. You should always be accessible. You should always be available. And if you're not, you're weak, you're not successful, you're not powerful. And these are lies that we've been told, right? So I do think it's most important to really to have that time and that ability to be in self-restoration so that when we are choosing to give, that it comes from love, that it comes from joy, that it comes from overflow. One of my favorite comparisons for that is like if you're pouring tea, that you're not letting other people drink from your cup, but you're letting them drink from the saucer when the overflows the rim of the cup, right? Um, and it's because there's just so much of it. Oh, then I have to find out how to do something with it, right? That's what I want us to create from. The genius that we hold, I want that to be accessible to others. And not so much that you are losing track of yourself, but in a way that's sustainable, that feels like it's easy and in flow, right? So we're here to really decide that our vision and our work deserves support. How do we know? Most of us have had a personal experience of why our work deserves support. Most of us wouldn't get passionate about sharing something that didn't help us or someone we know, right? And for me, like, again, my voice work helped me have a career that I wouldn't have been able to imagine as a child, right? It wasn't it wasn't a long career, but when I was an opera singer, like if you had told me as a child, hey girl, you're gonna be an opera singer, like I'd have been like, if you don't get your crazy ass up out my face. But I wouldn't have said it out loud because I didn't talk as a child. I was very introverted. I was very introverted and I did not share anything with people unless I really felt like I could trust them, unless I knew they would kind of let me take my time about telling them because I was a very slow speaker then, and still was up until probably, I don't know, 5 years ago. Right? So now I'm working on slowing down because ideas come to me so quickly. But that's something, again, I had to entrain into my body. My nervous system did not naturally come that way because I'm highly sensitive. So a lot of the people I'm working with are not working with just like kind of standard deviation settings where they'll just can keep going until and nothing happens. Most of us are realizing we can't keep going because we had some kind of illness, or we're realizing that we don't know if we're going to be able to keep going and we're running out of steam and we need to find something more sustainable. What can feed us? What's magical about anything that's creative, anything that's born and generated of the power of source is generative. In other words, you could actually get more energy from doing the work that you're here to do in the world than you can from even after a full day of working for somebody else in a place that you don't value, right? Or you're not valued. It works both ways, right? So it could, even in that, you can work all day, and I've done it. How do I know? Because I've done it, right? And then the thing that really you really care about, you do in the evening, and you have a whole another day worth of energy in you, right? You actually feel more energy when you leave that place than you did when you left work. And that's after working like two jobs worth of things. This is easier when we're younger, by the way. I'm not like this is the time I was young. I was young. I was youthful in my 20s and such. And was 30s, a little bit of 30s, right? So during that time when I was younger, but at the same time, like even now, like my normal work day is about I don't know, maybe 5 hours, really, because I mean, like I would take breaks and everything. I would say total, like altogether. And I've worked probably a cumulative of 12 hours per day, I would say. Maybe 12, or maybe not 12. I'm, I've pared down on the time I spent on things. Back in the day, I used to like work 14, 15. Yeah, I wouldn't be sleeping half the time I was going to sleep. I don't know. But right now, but now I'm probably going to get at least 7 hours of sleep. I already have. So I would say that's 15. I'd say like probably like a solid 7 to 8 hour days, which are full, like more than full days for me, right? And still, I have the energy to show up. Why? Because this is important to me. This is like, this is important to me. I know that there's massive amounts of wisdom and power and beauty to be shared that is not being shared because people are too sensitive and haven't been given the tools to deal with their own nervous systems. Um, and then I say too sensitive, but it's not too sensitive. You're perfectly sensitive because without your sensitivity, you wouldn't have the immense wisdom that you're holding. And we need it. I need it. We need it, right? We need it. And again, how do we know we need it? Because we need it. We needed it. If we didn't, if we didn't need it, we wouldn't have downloaded it. We wouldn't have received it as wisdom from source and experienced it through our experience here on the planet to be developed into wisdom. And or we wouldn't have gone learned what it took, right, to do what we need to do. So it's about this ability to use our voice to talk about these things, to change the patterns that we are holding to keep us safe and that are overtaxing our nervous system, that's causing overwhelm and anxiety, and train those to a place that are supporting us in the things that we want to focus on. We can retrain those things through our nervous system. And it's so that we can create this amazing superpower that develops from being as highly sensitive or innovative or creative thinkers. Neurodiversity is powerful, right? Like, because we find new solutions to problems. We think of ways through in ways that people are not representing externally, right? It becomes this way of sensing beyond the known material existence, right? So that's how this wisdom is kind of like, ooh, this it usually has this lovely, again, web-like culmination or this woven bright colors of from some of us are bringing our lineage and our actual ancestry into being and representation. And some of us are bringing this wonderful new creativity in the world of creating online, creating electronically, and connecting across the world through computers. And some of us are developing, like there's so many different threads of wisdom and beauty and what we have to offer that we bring together in this culmination. And it's so powerful. And one of the things that I did want to talk about is Gene Key 26. This is a key that has come up recently. I think it was I'm not going to know for sure, but I believe it was the full moon for May. That's what I believe. And it's essentially the pride is the shadow of this gene key, artfulness is the gift, and invisibility, which is the transcendence of ego. Okay. Is the city. SIDDHI is how we talk about it in Gene Keys. It's just this transcendent culmination of the energy across fields, across people, across communities. So it's about being able to live and the energetic desire of your will, what is important and valuable to you. And it's about integrating courage and trust that you are that you are of value and that you are holding something and you're courageously responding to the need in your environment, and in abundance of energy and service, right? In only in the abundance. I'm only looking for abundance here. Okay. Otherwise, how do we be prosperous? We kind of create self-limiting systems if we're just eking. We're like losing oil if we were a car, like losing oil as we go. And then eventually you just rust and the whole thing shuts down, right? Sustainably is abundant. Building sustainably is abundant. So what can happen here in this archetype of energy? And can you imagine this is somebody's genius, artfulness, gift of artfulness, this ability to say, this is my expression and and I can see it impacting others. When it can go wrong and when that shadow is showing up in that pride, it's essentially saying that I can't trust that you'll hear me. I can't trust that I'll have enough. I cannot trust that that the community or that I am supported. So what tends to happen in that shadow is that we compromise our integrity. Either we go really hard and we just go all in and we buy into the work hard works culture, obsessed is a thing, right? I don't want to be obsessed about what I'm obsessed about, but I don't want to be obsessed about something else as a replacement for what this is what we're bought. Well, this is what we're sold. We're sold that if we get obsessed enough, that will make the money that allow us to be free. Okay. But when we make the obsession, the result being the money, what we're doing is we're saying that our new obsession is the business itself. Okay. And what I uphold is that essentially that's how you become burnt out. Because either you did that or somebody that is you're in the system of did that. And whoever is the head honcho at your job did that. Okay. And so that when that system is created, it just eeks. It's just leaking that oil. Right. And so now you feel like you can't afford to be in your place of rightness, what you're here to do, how you're here to serve, the beauty that you hold that's expressed to the world. Right. And what I know for sure is that you're not heard if you're not clear on who you are. You're not heard. You're not seen when we're not clear on how we serve. And that is more than enough. It creates sustainability through abundance. There's always more. I can't ever get enough of talking about voice and self-expression. Right? There's just never going to be a day where I'm just like, said enough about that. Right? It's so much ingrained in me. Like I could be halfway to sleep and you ask me a question about it, be like, you know what? I've got something else to say about that. So I think if we're tapping into our inner diva, we're building this system that allows us to express what we're here to create. It's this ability to take our understanding of what is valuable and beautiful to us and communicate it in a way that is transformative, you know? And so having a clear vision and not allowing our teaching of being modest to keep us from being seen, right? Doesn't mean I have to get louder and bigger and better than the other A type, you know, masculine versions of that. It means that we get to be clear on who we are in this now moment, right? And understand that if we are here, then it's because we are supposed to be here. We belong here. We have things to be created and shared from our being here, right? And that you don't need another reason. Okay. You don't need another reason. You're here for a purpose. That is the truth. You're here for a reason. And whether you see that for yourself is the question. Whether you understand how valuable your voice and your vision is, that's the real question. And so that's the real work, right? So valuing your unique and powerful voice and not letting people to tell you to shut up or to get smaller or that nobody wants to hear from you on that on politics, right? That's what like a lot of stars have gotten in recent years, right? But when you have a platform, you get to share your voice, and that's just the way it is. And we get to build our platform for ourselves. We don't have to wait for somebody to give us the permission. But I do give you permission because some of us are waiting for it. I give you full permission for however you see value and beauty in the world to be shared from you, not from somebody else, your neighbor, whatever, from you. I want to hear your version, okay? You have a vision, and I do believe this. There's nothing that we hold that isn't meant to be of service. And I think that's not in a way that again, that absence the truth that you are the first beginning of that service, but in the truth that you wouldn't hold the desire if the field didn't hold the desire. What you want, the universe wants. What you want serves the planet. Okay. And I know. Some people have gotten confused on this, but again, is that truly what they want? Or is it what they were taught to want? And so, can you see how important it is that we are fully valuing the truth of our desires, especially if we understand that it's not to take and take from the earth, right? If we are not sharing the truth of that value with others, who is? It's very important that whatever we think needs to be talked about is what we choose to talk about, right? Right. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here. So we can have more of those conversations, so we have more of the communities that are created because of them. Okay. So what we have to realize today is that what I value has value. Okay. That I can be a stand for valuing that which I hold as valuable and beautiful. And I can call others to the service for that which I find valuable and beautiful. And that includes Gaia herself. Okay. And it's important. If it's important to you, it's important. That's all I can say about that. That's all I can say about that. So, whatever representatives today, I don't have any of my pictures. I didn't bring any of my pictures up. Didn't get myself together enough for that today. But this is the day where you're kind of tapping into this. What would it look like if I saw myself as a gracious diva leader? What would that look like? What kind of diva would I be? And so I've got a couple. I'm going to send you the poll like I usually do. But this is like that. How are we embracing your inner diva? And we're going to see like who represents diva to you, and not just diva, a gracious diva. Somebody you're like, I love this person. but also that holds the vision. The vision is the music. A lot of times when we talk about singing divas, right? It's the music and what they're creating. It's the artistry. So that's the other version. Anybody's creating something, the artistry of that. It's business. It is business. Somebody who's created a system and a community that feeds and is and feeds others and themselves. That's powerful. That's really powerful, right? So can we talk about the divas that we are already understanding that that's the true meaning of diva? Of course, we've got Babs on the screen. We got Barbara Streisand. We got Madonna. We got Diana Ross. We got Aretha Franklin. We got Jasmine Horn. We've got so many others. And I'm curious. I'm always curious. So you can add to the poll wherever you are. Who is your first person that comes to mind when I think of Gracious Diva? Okay. So that's what I have for you today. I want you to know that tomorrow, we're going to be talking about taking the stage and the challenges of starting or sharing your brilliance. What comes up? Why aren't we doing it? What's really going on? We're going to get into that tomorrow. And I thank you so much for working with me as I build these new things. And yeah, I like to cut it to the wire sometimes, but what I'm most interested in is getting this information out to the people that need it. Okay. So this is about committing to whatever vision, artistry, creativity, innovative leadership we're holding. We're holding the wisdom for something. What is it? Are you ready to value it at the level that you feel others could value it in the world to create a better world? Why? Why do you think it'll create a better world? These are the things you want to start tapping into. Okay, so when we do the work, we're going to write down, we're going to create portals to our Gracious Diva Leadership. We're going to create these wonderful anchor points that are going to drive us forward into leadership. So get ready for that. That's coming. If you aren't registered, you may miss it. So register, and that way you'll know where everything is, and that you'll get all of the wonderful teachings that we're going to have. So yeah, so we'll be doing the work. We'll be doing actual voice work. We'll be doing actual connecting into some of these understandings so that we can create our Gracious Diva leadership style. Okay, so I will see you tomorrow on day 2 of the Art of Being a Gracious Diva. Have a beautiful rest of your night.